on Russell Wilson early. Everybody knew this was coming. But now, how could he go regenerate his career? He had a good career already, okay, man? He's 35 years old.
Yeah.
And you young quarterbacks come in every year. The guy's not hurting for money. He's married to a freaking singer. I'm not worried about Russell Wilson getting another chance. Is he a Hall of Famer? I don't know. You know me. I don't care about the Hall of Fame because there's so many people that are in there I could argue about, and there's so many people that
True. I'm asking you right now, do you think if you had to vote, you get to decide, you get to check yes or no, what do you say?
I think the second level, I think he would take a couple of he's one of those guys that's got to go through a bunch of votes and see. He's got to wear you down. He's not a surefire. He's not a I never looked at Russell Wilson and said he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league.
No.
I had tough times sometimes shoehorning him into the top 10.
I did too.
So
I mean, let's not like, I'm not sitting here bashing him and just saying he was horrible. He had some good years in Seattle and he did some good things, but it's not, I just don't, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Seahawks success was because of Russell Wilson. I mean, this guy wasn't even supposed to be the starter. They took him in the 4th round. They brought him in. They realized, shit, the guy we have here isn't even as good as this rookie we have. We should just play him and release this guy. And that's what they did. And that was a good decision at the time. But as time wore on, Russell, it just kind of looked worse and worse as the players around him started to leave, as Marshawn's career left, as a lot of the guys on defense, Cam Chancellor retired, Richard Sherman got traded out of town, Earl Thomas left for the Ravens, coaches left. It started to expose Russell for what he was, which isn't, not a bad player, but just not this, elite quarterback that they made him out to be.
And it's also a symptom of what's going to become a huge problem in the NFL with these freaking quarterback salaries going up and up and up and up, and they're eating up so much of the cap space. And as you said, you have an owner who's paying $50 million for a quarterback and what, $5 million for a head coach?
Yeah.
That's hard to do. I mean, you and I both, that's like, if I made more money than my boss, how's that person going to tell me what to do? I mean, it doesn't work. And that's, and the whole thing is in football, you can get away with that in basketball, where a LeBron or certain players can come into a certain situation and change the whole complexion of your team. In football, as we've seen, I mean, we'll never know how good Daniel Jones could have been between the injuries and the fact he's never in an offensive line and had 17 coaches. You'll never know how good he maybe could have been if football was done the way it should be, where the quarterback comes in, he's given time to develop under one coaching regime, and he becomes as good as he could be. Now, it's everything is that PlayStation 2 mentality. Trade, fire, rewash, restart, rebuild. I mean, the whole thing right now in Denver, I look at it and I go, the first thing that came to mind for me is if I'm Sean Payton, I'd be kicking the tires on Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I would too.
He's more Drew Brees-like than anybody else out there. And that is his offense. And and he's only, 28, 29?
Yeah. And that's, I liked your comment earlier. Where does Russ go from here? I mean, does he maybe get a job? I don't know. I mean, think about it. Cam Newton was the MVP of the league. And as soon as his skills diminished a little bit, he was gone. And why was that? Because Cam, to this day, still thinks he's better quarterback than half the league, more than 75% of the league probably. Mm-hmm. He's the guy calling out Brock Purdy every day as a game manager. As Brock Purdy's leading his team to the Super Bowl. And, I not that Russ is the same as Cam Newton, but I'm just saying, do you think Russ views himself as a backup? Do you think Russ wants to come and groom some guy to take his job 6 games into the season? I don't. And as you mentioned, he doesn't need the money. He's going to get paid even if he doesn't play.
Right.
So I just don't see somebody like, oh, he's going to go to the Vikings. And I'm just like, why? Then they have the same problem that they had with Kirk Cousins, except the guy keep Kirk Cousins.
And Kirk Cousins knows your system.
And he's better.
Yeah.
He's a better quarterback.
But it's just, that's the whole thing, is like, it's not just plug and play. Everybody goes, Pittsburgh. Okay. If you wouldn't go in Pittsburgh, how much closer does that get you to Baltimore or Cincinnati? He's nowhere near those two quarterbacks.
No.
So, you may be a little bit better than Deshaun Watson, but, you basically now have become the Browns East.
Yeah.
You're taking a questionable quarterback who at one point in his time in the league was thought very highly of, but you don't know if they can ever recapture that again. And even if you found the perfect spot for him, what's to say he can still do it? What is to say? He's 35 years old.
Well, they tried everything to see if he could do it in Denver. They pretty much let him do whatever he wanted. They gave him his own office. They gave him let him bring in his own staff. They gave him more power than the coach. They let him help. They let him, let him kind of make decisions on personnel. And then that didn't work. So they got rid of the coach. They brought in another coach and started all over again. And then that still didn't work. So it's not like, Russ is a year out from being great, or Russ is a year out from where he was having large success. It was 4-5 seasons ago when he was actually still playing at a high level, right, in Seattle. I mean, that was a while ago, Joe. And I'm with you. I don't know if that's coming back ever.
No, like you said, unless he's willing. And like you said, it was funny. It wasn't about him, but I was watching a show and they had Brock Ewart on, and what he talked about, and it goes back to what you first talked about with him not really loving being a football player. And Brock Ewart brought up Peyton Manning, and he said, Peyton Manning, even when he was great, he loved the dull drudgery of watching film and being in meetings and taking notes in meetings. Even though he knew the offense better than anybody in that room, he was taking notes on what the coach was saying. He was taking on what the scouts were saying was going to happen. That's what, I think the one thing when you talk about a Brady or a Peyton Manning or even an Eli Manning, they love the drudgery of football. They love practice. They're probably, they seem glib on these commercials and everything. But have you ever gotten in a cocktail party? They might be the most. Well, you and I are football junkies, so they wouldn't bore us. But they might not be able to talk about too many things except football, and that's what these guys should be. That's what they have to be a great quarterback, and especially at this stage where Russell Wilson is. Does he really want to do that? He doesn't want to be a backup, but does he want to really put in the 50 weeks a year he's going to have to do to go to a new team, show them they showed the team, not the coaching staff, not the ownership, the guys that are going to be in the locker room going to battle with him, that he's there because he wants to lead them somewhere.
Right. And that's what always made Peyton Manning so good was not only did he have good skills and did he have good football mind and all that, but he was the most prepared guy on the team. And we see Peyton Manning everywhere now. But back in the day when he was playing, you didn't see him that often because he was doing what you said. He was getting treatment. He was working out. He was working with his receivers. He was watching tape. He was studying his own tape. He used to break down every corner in the league so he could get tendencies off of them. So he would know, okay, this pass is supposed to go to whomever, Demaryius Thomas over the middle. Who's covering him? How does that guy? Where is he? Inside coverage, inside leverage kind of guy. Is he a man? Is he a zone type corner? He knew all the tricks of the trade.
Yeah. Will he try to jump the route or let it establish?
Exactly. And Russ wants to be going to album release parties, and he wants to be going to the ESPYs, and you just can't do that if you want to be a very, very successful quarterback in this league. It's just, that's the way it is.
No, you can't just want to show up for 3 hours on Sunday, get all the cheers, run back out, and just, all right, I'm going to the local bar. See you later. Call me on. I'll be back Saturday.
Yeah, that is not how it works. And some of these guys that are ultra talented have tried that and failed. Now, Lawrence Taylor, that's a different story. The most talented guy of all time. He could go blow coke till 4 a.m, show up on Sunday still drunk and half hungover off cocaine, and he would still be the best player on the field. Those guys are 1 in a freaking 10 million.
Thank God, because my God, I don't think we could live with a bunch of those guys. Even though I love Lawrence Taylor, my favorite player of all time, but man, if we had 10,000 of him around, man, that would be a dangerous society.
Yeah, there a lot of people would be in danger. That's for sure.
As always, another guy that came up this week, Dak Prescott, who always seems, here's another guy. Dak Prescott is somewhere between number 7 and number 15, depending on the point of the season it's in, who the Dallas Cowboys are playing. He's a top half quarterback. I'm not going to say he had a great year this year in a regular season, but then reverted back to Dak being Dak in the playoffs. And they're talking about he's up for another contract now. And how is that going to affect them being able to keep Micah Parsons or CeeDee Lamb? And we've already seen, they had to cut bait with Ezekiel Elliott, and now you have no running game. You're going to have to overpay to get a running back down there. This is where Jerry Jones, and I'm not saying I have any knowledge of running a salary cap, but this is where his way of running a salary cap, because this happens like it's a cycle. It seems to happen every 5 or 6 years when he gets a quarterback, may it be Tony Romo, whether it be whoever, or a star. He comes up to the point where he's like, to keep this star, I got to let 3 guys go.
Yeah. Yeah, he overpaid Drew Bledsoe. He overpaid Tony Romo. He's overpaid Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. His numbers are pretty solid. He threw for over 4,500 yards. He had 36 touchdowns, and he had 9 interceptions. He's a guy that can put up good numbers. But like you said, is this a guy who can win a Super Bowl? I don't know. He hasn't proven that he can even win games in the playoffs. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you just keep throwing him out there, he's going to lead the Cowboys to a Super Bowl. I just don't know that. And, where do they go from here? I don't have the answer, but I can tell you that they would be a lot better off if they had a football guy in their building making these decisions instead of a oil tycoon who thinks he's a football guy.
Who wants to prove he's a football guy? That's his big thing. He wants to prove, and that's what I'm talking about, these new owner guys. They want to come in and they want to have command. No, you hire the GM. You do what? Look what the lady up in Detroit did this year or last year. She made a good decision on general manager, made a good decision on a coach, and got out of the way.
Yep.
And that's what you got to do. That's what you have to be as an owner. That's what the Hunts do in Kansas City. But when you look at what this Dak Prescott contract is going to be, they've got to get a handle on this in the NFL. They've got to somehow differentiate who are the elite quarterbacks making $40 million. I get it. Lamar Jackson deserves it. Joe Burrow deserves it, I guess, already. But, he deserves to be a top pay. Patrick Mahomes, all the way. But there aren't that many that deserve the $40 million threshold. And because of the way things work, all these guys are going to be looking for that contract, and they're going to get it. And it throws away, it skews everything it just makes everything crazy.
It certainly does. And that's why you have to know what you're doing, because if you don't know how to manage the cap, if you don't have a clear plan, well, then you're just paying guys because of their position, or you're paying guys because you like them. You need to craft your team based upon a strategy for winning. Look what the Chiefs are the best example here. They had Alex Smith. He was a serviceable quarterback. He led them to the playoffs, and they said, what do we need to do to get over the hump? Well, we probably need to get a guy in here who, is a little bit more talented than him, maybe take a chance on a quarterback, see if Andy can develop him like Andy has done time and time again. They went out and drafted Patrick Mahomes and then got shredded for it. I don't know if you saw that post I sent where, Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless and all these guys just ripped apart Michael Irvin, a couple other Stephen A. Smith. all these guys that are supposed talking heads in the sports world and think they know everything ripped apart that draft pick of Patrick Mahomes. And, the general manager for the Chiefs is like, they can say whatever they want. He's like, we know that we got a great player who we can develop. And they were just like, why would you waste that pick to develop a guy? Well, because look what he's become. He sat behind a good quarterback. He learned how to be a pro, and then he was developed by the greatest quarterback developer of our time, Andy Reid, and they're winning Super Bowls every year now. And that's how you get it done. You don't just pay money to a guy because you're not sure what to do.
Well, that's where the reality check has to come in. These guys, these teams have to have like a big mirror and say, how close, like as a Giant fan, I'm going to bring up the Giants. Let's talk about the Giants right now. Everybody, because I'm up here and I'm listening to Sports Talk Radio. Giants got to get this. Giants got to get that. Giants. I see more holes on the Giants than I see answers. I see more question marks than answers, and I think I don't know Joe Shane. I don't know him personally. I think he comes from a good background and he's fine. I like Brian Dable. Brian Dable's got a lot of Parcells in him. But I think right now, Joe Shane and Brian Dable, if I was them, I'd sit down with Mara and Tish and say, look, let's be honest. Let's put our cards on the table. We need to somehow be better than the Eagles and the Cowboys. And right now, we're not close to that. So if you think one draft and maybe a good free agency is going to put us jumping over them, it's probably not going to happen. So you tell us, what's the timetable? What is the timetable we need to get better? Are you going to give us 2 years? Are you going to give us, 3 years? Or you only give us 1 year? Because I'll tell you right now, you might as well fire me now because it's not happening in 1 year.
No, it's not happening in 1 year. I mean, do I think that they're a team that can win the Super Bowl in 2024? No, I don't. But can they get better? Definitely. If they can put together a plan and execute it, they can certainly get better. They had a good draft last year. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Jalen Hyatt is going to be a good player. I like him. I like what I've seen from him. Andrew Thomas has shown to be a good player. We already talked about it last week. John Michael Schmitz, I think, is going to be their center for a long time. So, they've made improvements on this roster. What they need to do now is figure out where the weakest parts are, improve those with free agency, go out and get guys that maybe aren't the big number guys, but they are guys that can come in and improve your culture and improve the product on the field, and then supplement that with young guys that can come in and take those guys' position as you move forward. So that's the big thing. It's going to be a very, very important offseason in New York, especially not just the draft, but with free agency as well, because they need people from both areas.
But that's where they need to give the assurance. If I was John Mara, I would say, look, don't pay attention to the fan. Don't pay attention to the crap that you see all over the place. You're our guys. As long as you don't totally bottom out and I don't see you losing the locker room, because you didn't lose the locker room last year. You could have, you didn't. You came back at the end. You played strong. You kind of finished okay. I'm fine with that. But give these guys some rope and let them know that they're going to be there. I mean, that's one thing why Mike Tomlin every year is so great, because he knows that the Steelers aren't going to suddenly make a knee-jerk reaction and fire him. They're going to say, okay, we're going to look over, we'll evaluate it, and if it's your usual good job, what can we do? The players have responsibility too. Injuries happen. Things happen. Guys, Kenny Pickett did not improve like we all thought he was. It hurt us, and the only thing you can yell at him about was the offensive coordinator. But that's the whole thing with we got to put emphasis back into coaching in these professional sports and give these coaches some time and some authority. The way I see it right now, I mean, the way football is being run and a lot of the other sports is they're just mouthpieces. They know they're one bad week away from getting fired, or losing streak getting fired. You got to give these guys a chance.
It's true, but it's the way that the game is now. These guys don't really have a lot of time to develop, and that's the same thing with college. So you have to be able to A, develop guys, B, bring guys in that can be placeholders or that can improve your team at certain positions. I mean, just look at college football for an example. That's what coaches do now. They go out to the portal and they're like, where are we weakest at? Well, our offensive line is not good. We need to go get a couple guys from the portal. Who do we know that we think is in the portal that's good that we can get? They can play tackle. They can play guard. They can play whatever position. And you go out and you get a couple guys to supplement that position group. And then you go out and you draft guys that you can't get through free agency. And that's what they need to do here is go out and get a couple guys in free agency. And then, where they weren't able to get guys, draft them and then develop them. Because you've got to be able to do both now because you don't have time to just straight up develop from the beginning till the end. You've got to be able to bring in some free agents that can help you and not, and not just take up cap space and eat up money. You need them guys that can come in and make a difference on your team.
Well, I mean, but the downside is Saban came out and said this week, you have now these players who want assurances how much money they're going to get out of the money that's being allotted, and then also how are they going to be starting? If they're not going to start, they go right to the portal because they know that's their quickest way. Their quickest way to the money. So it's one of these things that I know we're learning on the fly, and football right now, because it's the most popular sport, it's the sport that's right out in front of us and driving us crazy, but it's also the sport that needs the most depth, that coaching means the most in, and continuity means a lot in those locker rooms. And man, with the way at both levels that, first of all, on the pro level, they can't afford to keep good players, and on the college or the collegiate level, they can't get these guys to have the patience to stick around to play. It's making it hard for these coaches to really do the job they're hired to do.
Yeah, and a big factor in the Giants next year and the year after is they have to get somebody they have the number 6 pick in the NFL draft. They've got to get somebody at number 6 that can come in and be a difference maker. I mean, let's be honest, the receiving core this past year was better than it was the year before, but they still don't have a number 1 guy. They still don't have somebody that can dictate coverage, that can take the top off the defense. They still don't have that guy, and they don't, and they're still not there at the quarterback position. Whether it's Daniel Jones not developing, whether it's him being injured, I think it's a little bit of both. Do they go out and do they draft somebody, or do they go and do they fix the wide receiver position? It's going to depend on whether who's there when they pick at number 6, or do they try and move up? I think you have to stay where you're at and just take the best players available, because that's what the good teams do. And that's what the teams that have success in this league do. They don't mortgage their future for the now.
Right. Unless you have a certain situation where you know that this is our one and only chance because we got a bunch of retiring players coming up. We have this going on. We have that going on. You're right. You don't.
Yeah. Well, if you're the 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, well, hell yeah. Then you do it. Then you move up. Then you take the best guy you can get. You take Tristan Wirfs and move up and pick him at left tackle and insert him into the lineup because you've got Tom Brady and you're going for a Super Bowl. But we just talked that the Giants aren't going to win the Super Bowl this year. That we already know that. So you stay where you are and you take the best guy that's available and you make the most out of your draft picks. And like we said, you draft based upon your biggest needs after you get through free agency.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd rather see them go out and if they can get some free agent type linemen, offensive linemen. They've tried to do it through the draft. That's such a crapshoot in the draft. I mean, they were lucky to get Thomas, and like you said, the center looks like he's going to be good. But Evan Neal was not so good. Eric Flowers years ago, not at all. I mean, that just shows you what a crapshoot is. And everybody goes, got to get an offensive lineman. You got to get Joe Alt. Well, let's see what Joe Alt can do if he's not blocking Navy. It's like, I don't know. It's like That's the big difference. Is like it's different. Every game is different in the NFL, where the players you're playing against are as good as you. You're not going to be able to dominate them.
That's definitely true. But, I think that some of these guys are coming into the NFL, more ready to play. I mean, let's be honest, football is a year-round thing now. You have to be good at your craft or you're going to get replaced in college football. I mean, there's no more of, being able to, like you said, develop over time. I mean, you got to get good quick or you're going to be, transferred out because you're not going to be getting to play. So I think that most guys are coming in ready, more ready to play, but you have to have a guy who knows what he's doing and knows what you're looking for, because you could get we just talked about earlier, the Herschel Walker trade. Well, was Herschel Walker a horrible football player? No. But he didn't fit the Vikings system. Herschel was an eye back, and the Vikings ran a split back system. So they trade away their whole team for this guy who didn't really fit with what they did, and it was a disaster. So you can't go draft somebody who's maybe good but doesn't fit what you do. That's taking two steps, one step forward and two steps back.
For sure. Hey, let's do a little. What time we got left? Let's do a little SEC basketball here. We promised to talk about that. Your Vols are having a very good year. And you got South Carolina right behind them, Auburn, and then Kentucky, who everybody hates. Let's face facts. I mean, it's a very solid conference here. 8 deep, 7 deep?
Yeah, I see at least 7 teams getting into the tournament, maybe 8, based on what I'm looking at right now. Last night was a huge night. Obviously, with Tennessee beating South Carolina in Columbia and winning the SEC regular season title outright for the first time since 2008. Now, they did win, were co-champions in 2018 with Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield, but last night was the first time that this Tennessee Volunteers, Rick Barnes-led team has won the outright SEC championship for the regular season since 2008. And it was big. And, this team has a lot of veterans in it, but they also have younger guys. They have a superstar, but they have role players. I mean, this might be the best team that Tennessee's ever had. And I'm going back to when, basketball began at this storied university, because, like I said, the mix of guys. I mean, Santiago Vescovi is the best example, okay? Last night, Santiago Vescovi had 2 points. 2 points. But he had 3 crucial steals. He took a charge. He had a beautiful assist. And then his only 2 points were free throws at the end of the game, which kept the Vols in the lead and helped them secure the victory. But this is a guy who used to score close to 20 points a game when he came as a freshman, as a sophomore, because he was one of their main scoring threats. And now, he had 0 points going into the last 2 minutes of the ball game, but he's okay with that because he stayed. He came back to school for his 5th year because he wants to win. Josiah Jordan James is the same thing. This guy is a 5th-year senior. He was a 5-star recruit, and he's out there being a role player, just doing the things that he's asked to do to win. And I think this team is the best when Dalton Knecht doesn't score 40, but he scores 25. He scores 24, and then the rest of these guys, he gets the rest of these guys involved around him. And then that's why I think that Tennessee is the best team in this conference, and I think they're a number 1 seed. I think they proved last night by beating a good South Carolina team on the road that they are better than Arizona. I think they take that 4th number 1 seed and they run with it because they played well all year long. They've proven to be the best team in the best conference, in my opinion. And I think that they're, for sure fire a number 1 seed, because if you look at the standings right now, okay, Tennessee's getting in, Kentucky's getting in, Auburn's getting in, Alabama's getting in, South Carolina is getting in, Florida's getting in. I think Mississippi State probably gets in with a 19-11 record. And then, Texas A&M is on the fence. So you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams that are probably going to come out of the SEC. And then you still have Ole Miss, who's 20-10. So, if Ole Miss makes a run in the SEC tournament, which I don't really anticipate, but they do have a good coach in Chris Beard. So, that's when good coaches show up, is during tournament time, as you know. And so if Ole Miss wins 2 or 3 games and they're 23-10, how can you leave them out? Then you have 9 teams. So I just feel like Tennessee's proven to be a top-level team. They're 24-6. They're 14-3 in the SEC. They're ranked number 4, and they've won 7 in a row. Don't you want to get the teams that are playing the best right now? They're 14-1 overall. They're 8-3, 14-1 at home, 8-3 on the road. And like I said, they've won 7 in a row. So I feel like they're a number 1 seed.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about take a couple of minutes or a minute or two on Mississippi State. Like you said, 19-11 looks solid there. They're currently in their 3-game losing streak. The thing I find intriguing about Mississippi State, and I want you to break down Mississippi State for me for a minute, 6-0 on neutral site games.
Yeah,
that speaks volumes when you come to the tournament. What do you talk to me about Mississippi State and their possibilities of making it? Why are they on a 3-game losing streak? What's going on with them?
Yeah, first off, they're on a 3-game losing streak because they play in the SEC. I mean, it's not like they suck. They played Kentucky, Auburn, and Texas A&M at 3 games in a row. And, they played at Auburn. They played at Texas A&M, which is a tough place to play. And then they lost at home to Kentucky by 2 points.
Okay.
So it's not like they've fallen apart. And if you look at it, talking about Mississippi State, before that, they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They had won 5 in a row before these 3 games. And, the only game that they really got blown out was at Auburn. They got beat 78-63. That was not a great game for them. But these other 2 games they lost by 2 points to Kentucky, 91-89. And then they lost to Texas A&M, like I said, in College Station, 75-69 in a close game. And, Hubbard is a really, really good player. He's been probably their best player all year long. As we know, in the tournament, it comes down to guard play. I mean, that's
it does.
Who can dribble the ball, get the ball up the court, beat the press, who can get fouled at the end of the game and make their free throws, who can hit the shots from the outside. Well, Josh Hubbard can do that. He averages over 16, almost 16 and a half points a game. He's 26 minutes. He's been available. He's played in 30 games this season, all 30 of them. He shoots about 40% from the floor. He shoots 83.5%. From the free throw line. And he shoots about 37% from 3. So I like Josh Hubbard a lot. He's kind of an unknown player, but I know him and I really like him. And I think, he's going to be a guy that can really propel this team maybe to a couple of wins in the SEC tournament. And if they can win a game or 2, that's going to help their chances a lot more.
And it's also South Carolina, nice 3-0 in neutral sites. Auburn 4-1. I always like looking at those neutral site games when it comes towards tournament time, because those are the guys that they may not be in the top 4, but those are the teams you look at 5 through 10, 5 through 14 that can be bracket busters because they can play at neutral sites. I love looking at that. And if they have good guard play, like you said, they can make some statements.
Yeah, and like you said, that's the big thing is neutral site games, who can win those. And that's why I said if Mississippi State can win a couple of games here in the tournament, then they can get, in the SEC tournament, then they can make the NCAA. And they've already proven to be a good neutral site team, and they've got good guard play. And I think, this last 3 games have been tough, but as I mentioned, they won 5 in a row before that. And so I'm not selling out on them just yet.
All right, well, let's in a few minutes we got left. The Big Ten basketball this year, it's all about Purdue, it seems. What is Michigan State, of course, as long as Izzo's there, they're a team you got to pay attention to. And Wisconsin always does a good job. Your boy is up in Michigan. Juwan Howard, has he lost his magic?
Yeah, how this guy isn't fired is just a freaking conundrum to me right now. Okay, they're 3-16 in the Big Ten, which isn't a great conference. They're 8-22 overall. It's not like this guy's been just an angel off the court.
Exactly.
He's punched other coaches in the face. They've had some difficulties in-house as well, and yet the AD is putting his faith in him now. Whether or not they'll retain him after the season, I don't know.
I
don't think he can. I think he's going to get fired as soon as the season's over. He's a guy that played at Michigan. He's a guy that had a little bit of success as a coach when he first got there, playing with another coach's players. So that's how he's managed to stay. But I think his run is over after this year, and their season's over now because they ain't making a run in the Big Ten, and they certainly aren't making any postseason tournament.
Didn't he also have Beeline on his coaching staff when he first got there?
He's got Phil Martelli.
Oh, Phil Martelli, that's who I'm thinking of. Beeline was before him.
Yeah, Martelli is on his staff.
Yeah, the St. Joe's coach.
On his staff. So it's like, he's got an older, experienced guy that he can run things by, but ultimately it's his decisions, and his decisions have proven to be bad, both, in game, both with some of these players. There's a reason that Dickinson chose to walk and go to Kansas. It was because he knew this team was going nowhere, and I don't think he really liked what the head coach was doing. But a team that I do like out of the Big Ten right now, besides Purdue, is Illinois. They're ranked number 12 overall. They're finished the season 13-6, or they're sitting right now in the season in the Big Ten 13-6. This is a team that I saw up close and personal when they came here to Knoxville and played Tennessee. They're 22-8 overall, and this is a team that I could see giving some teams some problems. They've got a kid in Terrence Shannon who averages 21.5 points a game. He's a really good guard, as we just mentioned. Guard play is what it comes down to. And then they've got a kid, I think they have 4 guys that average double figures. And then a couple of role guys that average 5, 6, 7 points, in the middle there. But that's what I like about this team is they have a couple of really good scorers, and Marcus Damask, Coleman Hawkins, and as I mentioned, Terrence Shannon Jr., who can fill it up.
Well, I think the Big Ten, like I said, I think they're going to put their hopes pretty much on Purdue. Illinois looks good. Big East going to have a few teams in there too. So it's going to be interesting. We'll get into that a lot next week because we got the conference tournaments coming up. And I want to talk a lot of Big East. UConn has been phenomenal all this year. And I've always been a Shaka Smart supporter, and I was hoping that Marquette could kind of make a run and maybe even push UConn a little bit. But losing Kulik is huge. And, I mean, he's day-to-day, they say, but I hate when I hear oblique injuries. Oblique are long-term things. It can take weeks to get back, and this is like the worst time of year for him to have that kind of an injury.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. I mean, this is a kid who is a guard on this team.
Leads the nation in assists.
Yeah, he averages 7.6 assists a game. He averages 15 points. He averages almost 5 rebounds. This is a guy that not only can hit shots, but create shots for other guys. Rebounds the basketball very well for a guard, and not having him could be crucial.
Could be devastating.
Yeah,
devastating
for them to succeed in the tournament. He's got to be there. The good thing is that maybe you sit him for the Big East tournament, then you try and get him back at full strength for the NCAA.
Yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to that because I think UConn is. I think UConn is going to dominate. Creighton is going to give them a little bit of problem. I think I watched Creighton last week against Marquette. Of course, they were down Kulik in their center. Very good. Marquette actually, I got to give Shaka Smart a lot of credit because his team he took them right down to the 8-minute mark, and then it was just we don't have enough healthy bodies right now to compete with Creighton. And Creighton's a really different team, and they were shooting threes like you wouldn't believe. So it was a fun game to watch last Saturday. So I'm looking forward to the NCAA tournament coming up. Are you guys on Sunday or?
I don't know. That's a good question. We are working on trying to get a big time guest here, and we're kind of waiting and seeing what happens with that before we move forward. We're trying to get. I'm not going to reveal his name right now, but we spoke with the guy last week, and he told us to call his agent. So hopefully, it doesn't mean we have to pay for it, but I think it means that we just have to work with him on the scheduling. So we'll see if we can do that. But I'll be in the house Saturday, 4:00. Kentucky comes to town to take on the Tennessee Volunteers, the SEC champions. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously Kentucky's a huge game. Obviously that place will be rocking. But does Rick Barnes coach differently with already securing the number one seed in the regular season championship? Does he want to go out with a bang? I don't know. They won 7 in a row, and I would think they would want to finish off strong. We've seen this before, though, Joe, where teams, finish the season really strong. They win their conference championship, and then they get to the NCAA and they look worn out. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Coach Barnes plays this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because the whole thing is you also don't want to feed that Kentucky Wildcat arrogance either. It'd be nice to keep them down, keep them a little bit under your thumb going in there. You're going to have to probably play them. You might have to play them in the SEC tournament. It could come down to that championship game. You never know. I think basically it's something you and I would never have an inside track on. You got to know the health of your team. If your team is healthy, if you're not, if there's no one with a nagging injury, if they, like you said, they're coming in high, keep them on high, keep them going.
Yeah, no, I mean, you want to keep this going, but you also, you want to be smart about it. And that's the one thing you don't want to, wear these guys out and, just hurt your team by, playing this kind of meaningless game. The thing is, Coach Barnes has a very, very good record against Kentucky. Tennessee took care of business up in Lexington and really, really kicked their ass in Rupp Arena, which was impressive. They cut it to 10-9 a couple of times, but really that game was controlled by Tennessee from start to finish. And I think that, Kentucky's going to come in with a little bit of chip on their shoulder and want a little bit of revenge. So it'll be interesting to me to see whether, Tennessee can hold it down. Kentucky can certainly score. Okay. They can light it up. They put up 117 points last Saturday versus, I believe it was Arkansas. And they can certainly fill it up. The thing is, can they defend? The answer so far has been no. They've struggled at defending. I mean, yeah, they put up 117 points, but they gave up nearly 100 to a not very good Arkansas team. So it'll be an interesting game, and maybe, as you said, a preview of what we might see in the SEC championship in the SEC tournament.
Well, the only thing I say is there's only 2 coaches really and there's a bunch, but I can't say that. But I mean, Calipari's right up there with Steve Spurrier as a guy I love watching get beat. So I will be definitely rooting for Tennessee to take care of business.
Yeah, so will I. And as I mentioned, they went up to Lexington and beat them 103-92, and a lot of points that Kentucky put up were late after the game was already decided, and that was a big game for Josiah Jordan-James. Career high 26 points, 9 of 18 shooting for the fifth-year senior, and it's going to take something like that. Somebody else is going to have to step up is basically what I'm saying, because is Kentucky the best defensive team in the league? No, but they have a lot of long, athletic guys that can hold, Dalton Knecht down a little bit. They held him to 5 of 14 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3-point range. He still had 16 points, but part of that was he was 5 of 5 from the line. So I think somebody else is going to have to step up and put some points on the board like they got from Josiah Jordan-James up in Kentucky, and they also got 26 from Zakai Ziegler. So those 2 guys, that's going to be Jonas Adu. Those guys are going to have to play big in order for them to win on Saturday.
All right, my friend. Let's wrap it up here. We're getting ready for the weekend. Nothing big going on, I don't think, except watching a little basketball. And we will be back next Thursday night. Everybody have a great week. Hey, enjoy the weekend, my friend.
You too, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye.